Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Musicast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very top of the show, we're recording on a Friday. I'm sure you're probably going to get this episode on Wednesday, and I don't know when you're going to listen to it, but it's Friday night here. And at the very beginning of the show, I think Joy has got a little bit of music news for us.
Yes. All right. Music news, insert song here. So anyway, so with that being said, have you seen that there is a group of, well, there's two, it's really two fans that are suing Madonna for starting her concert late?
No, I didn't see that.
So I guess it's a trend with Madonna, which doesn't shock anyone, that she just kind of like, apparently if you go to her concerts, it might say it starts at 8:30, but you might be there till midnight till she decides to go on show. I didn't know that that was a process, but it is. Apparently recently, she was set to have a concert in New York. Michael Fellows and Jonathan Handed of New York City, one's from Brooklyn, one's from the Bronx, filed a lawsuit basically saying that on her December 13th show for her celebration tour, she was supposed to start at 8:30. She did not go on the stage until between 10:45 and 11 p.m. is what they estimate. And the show did not get in, show ran past 1 a.m. and they had to work the next day. It's literally a Wednesday night, so they were upset. They paid, you know what I mean, good $500 to go see this concert between the two of them, because they said it was anywhere from $150 to $300 a ticket. And they were promised that she was going to start at 8:30. And I do feel as though it is kind of false advertisement.
Yeah, and if nothing else, it's not professional and it's
Not at
rude.
all.
I mean,
It's very rude.
This is 1990s Axl Rose antics.
It really is.
And it just, I mean, how can you be someone like Madonna, who's been in the music industry for so long, and pull this kind of stuff? Because it's not so much the audience that are inconvenienced. Let's think of the local crew. Let's think of your other crew that travels with you. Or, you know, the
Could
show's
have been bad weather that night. We don't know.
The show's supposed to finish at, let's say, 10:30. You know, they have a thing where show finish at 10:30, breakdown by 11, on the trucks by 12, on the road by 12:30, and then every part of that chain is timed out. So Madonna's pulling diva antics and doesn't finish till 1. Everything in that logistics chain is messed up. And plus, you know, I said people spending $500 a ticket to see Madonna. It's just rude. I mean, I don't know how you could do that.
I really don't. And it seems like, I mean, I don't hate on Madonna at all. I really don't know much about her personally anymore. But it seems like she's just become really out of touch with reality. And I know there was, like, we've joked about the Elton John Madonna feud, and Cher hates Madonna too, and things of that nature. So there are a lot of singers and songwriters who've said really negative things about Madonna as a person in general. But I can't help but think she has to have some positive in her, because I love her music and some of the things she stands for. But it really feels like, you know, when we were talking about the plastic surgery and then the kids and just like the weird headlines you hear about her, like, when she did like carpool karaoke, you know, she had to put her leg out the window and hang out the window and just do things that are really, I mean, almost like over the top and like out of touch with reality. Like, that's what I hear from her now. And I think that's part of it, Tim.
Yeah, I just, as I said, I don't see how you can be in that business for that period of time and not know that stuff.
Well, apparently it's not a first by any stretch. It's something she's commonly known to do. Also, what if, I mean, this is very, very speculation. Tim, you made a good point about how everybody kind of has their part and make sure the show goes up and the show goes down and everything's closed out and ready to roll. If there was an early show the next morning for somebody else, right, that they were doing there, or some other event that started early, you could push that back. Like, there's just 1,000 other things. And then all the audience members who, I went to a concert on a Wednesday night and I stayed up till 1 a.m. and I felt like I was going to die the next day, and I'm in my 30s. Some of Madonna's fans are quite old, and I don't think that they would love to be hanging out on a Wednesday at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and the other thing is you things like people have childcare to think of.
That.
So they think the concert's going to finish around this time, and they've paid paid for childcare. They've got hotel. I mean,
You never know.
there's so much stuff. I mean, I've been to, Broadway style performances that might start 15 minutes late. I mean, I've played gigs that maybe have
Yeah,
started
I've been
late.
at concerts that started late.
Yeah, and I mean, I've played gigs myself that may have started a little late, and it might be the member of the band stuck in traffic, or we're waiting for I don't know,
Something broke.
yeah, or the best man to turn up, or a mixing desk broke. There's various things. But for her just to be sitting backstage or in a hotel room just having a diva moment, it's just rude.
I know, and it's not like you said, it's definitely not her first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. It's very strange. And if I were that audience, I would be upset too, because in my mind, I would be like, okay, I plan to be out till midnight. I can handle going to bed, maybe 12:30, getting up at 7. I can handle that. It's not my favorite, but I can do it. But I can't be on my top game at work if I don't get home till 3 a.m. And I don't want to waste the $300 I just spent on these back row tickets to see Madonna.
Exactly.
Catch 22.
I mean, when I saw Paul McCartney in Greensboro, I seem to remember that started about an hour and a bit late. And the reason being is that Paul's flight was delayed. So it lands at Greensboro Airport, I think. He then gets like a police escort in. And then
That's what Elton John did too.
Yeah. And then when we were waiting, because they sort of let us into like the inner part of the Greensboro Coliseum, but they wouldn't let you actually in. And the reason they wouldn't let you in, you could hear him in the background because he was doing a quick sound check.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that was completely circumstances beyond his control, and all the security people said that's Paul in there. He's sound checking. His flight was late. We're going to start the show as soon as we can. As soon as Paul's happy with the sound, we're gonna get this show going. And it was about an hour and a bit late, I suppose.
We did one time go to it's where I saw like the Used and a few of those pop punk bands that I really like. And it was I don't want to say it was PNC, but maybe it was. It was in Charlotte on the campgrounds, and there was multiple stages set up, kind of like what you do at like Live Nation shows and things like that, where there's sometimes multiple stuff. I wasn't super interested in any of the smaller bands. It was so hot that day, though. I do remember we were sweltering. So that was already contributing to our attitudes. Mm-hmm. But they got the time schedule mixed up, and they ended up, one of the opening acts basically was on one of the secondary stages, and somehow like the times ran together. And my friend Molly, who you guys have if you're a listener, you know who Molly is. She was very upset because she had timed it where she wanted to see one band and then make it in time for the closing. And she almost missed the closing act and it was just poor setup, honestly, Tim. Like the way they had the stages, things weren't running well. Like the whole thing was just a calamity. And it was like 1,000 degrees, so people are already upset. Like the only benefit was I think we got our tickets moved up, but Molly was really upset over like the timing of it all. And also we had to stand out even longer in the heat because the way they screwed it all up, they decided to put a hold on the Used to try to wait it out. And it just got worse and worse from there. So yes, the schedule is very important.
Yeah, you have to keep to your schedule, people. It's very important.
Anyway, so I don't know what Tim would like to open the episode with, but I will turn it over to him.
Okay, so I've got two things. One, today, which is January the 19th, a Friday, as I said, it is Dolly Parton's birthday.
I figured you might have that one, so I left it alone.
Yeah, she's 78 years old today. And she put up on her various social media accounts this morning that she probably faxed her assistant that as a birthday present that she was giving to all of us is that she was releasing the deluxe version of her album Rockstar. Now, it was, we've done the two-part episode of Rockstar track by track. And at the end of the episode, I spoke about how there's a Target edition and a iTunes edition and a this edition and that edition, and they had bonus tracks on them. So Dolly has decided for her 78th birthday that it's time to release all of those tracks.
I don't know how, that's already a really long album.
Oh, it now clocks in.
It's such a long album.
It clocks in now at 39 tracks, and we are looking at 2 hours and 57 minutes.
And Tim, what do you say is the estimate? You probably listen to more albums straight through than I do. How many songs do you generally see on an album for most general consensus?
10, 12, 13,
yeah,
maybe.
I see like 12,
like
maybe 16 was at like the top.
Most of your classic albums, your classic 70s and 80s albums, normally clock in about 45 minutes, give or take.
Yeah, so it's not that I don't love Dolly. That's just already a really long album.
Exactly. No, well, I'm not going to obviously go track by track, but let me just tell you what's on here. As per the second part of our episode, it closed with Freebird. And then we go from there. These are the new ones released today. Rockin'
Mhm.
It, which is an original song, but a live version.
Okay.
Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Mama Never Said. Two Tickets to Paradise. A live version of Jolene with Måneskin. Stay Out of My Bedroom. She does a version of Bridge Over Troubled Water, a version of The Entertainer, and then she does a version of Sweet Dreams Are Made of This.
Hmm. The only one that I'm really curious to hear is Two Tickets to Paradise. That's the one that grasped me when you said it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious about the Eurythmics cover. I think that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like if she could do it right, I feel like it because Analytics has such a deep voice though, and Dolly is so naturally high. It would be interesting to see how it comes out, but I feel like it could be done right.
Yeah, I mean you can never tell how this is going to be. As I said, a lot of those other songs we spoke of are all pitched up. So
Hmm.
it might work, it might sound funky, you really don't know.
We'll find out soon enough, I guess.
Exactly. Okay, so that's that bit. So Joy, I should explain. So I sent Joy a video of a boy band on David Letterman's TV show. Now, to give you some context of this, I have recently discovered that the work of the late night TV host David Letterman is being posted on YouTube. I was a huge fan of David Letterman, and weirdly enough, I watch more David Letterman in the UK than I did when I moved to the US. Because when I lived in the UK, I used to use a dirty word. I don't live there anymore. I used to torrent the episodes from a Swedish tracker, and I used to watch them.
Never heard that word before, Tim.
No,
Not once in my life. I don't even know it. How do you just torrent, right?
I believe the statute of limitations applies. It was 10, 13 years ago. Anyway,
Anyway.
so I used to pull these episodes and I really used to like it. There's something very appealing about his absurdist humor to me. It really works with my humor, where I really
It's
like
very
it.
British, honestly.
Yeah, it's very similar to Alan Partridge, and it's very similar to Vic Reeves in a lot of ways. So I used to watch this, and it used to be a thing I'd watch every day, and I really loved it. And in fact, in 2005 or six, I can't remember, I did a trip to New York City, and I actually sat in the audience of the Ed Sullivan Theatre, and I watched an episode being taped live, and that was very special, having being a big fan of the show. So as I said, he continued on with his late night show, and he retired in 2015. And that was big news. Dave had been on TV for 30 years or whatever it was, and he retired from TV, and he's now grown a big long beard and plays with racing cars and just makes snarky comments to people and stuff like that. Anyhow, he owns all of his content, and he's been slowly uploading it all to YouTube. Because I would imagine, because he owns all the rights to it, he can monetize it. And you look at the view counts and some of those clips. They don't put whole episodes. It's like clips and performances and
Just little bits.
this, that, the other. And they have interviews with people who used to work there who talk about their favorite things.
Okay.
And some of them have got hundreds of thousands of views, and they put 3 or 4 clips up a day. And I've really been enjoying it. It's like Dave is back, even though he's been off TV for 9 years. But as there's been a thing now, my YouTube has started to recommend the things to me, and I've been really enjoying it. I was not aware of this. So, Joy, I sent Joy a video of a boy band performing on David Letterman's show called Fresh Step from 1999. They performed on that show twice, but I just sent Joy one video clip of them performing. And Dave holds up the CD and blah, 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 blah. What did you think of that boy band?
Well, first of all, I recognize that the lead singer is from Glee. It's Matthew Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gave me an indication that it's probably not real. And I think I'm correct. But the setup was wonderful.
Yeah.
And obviously I'd never heard of that movie. But it was funny because I didn't at first know it wasn't real, because I think that's the joke. Like, a lot of people didn't know it wasn't real. But I was like, it's like whirl. What is the whirl of the world. That move, that the radio thing, War of the Worlds. It was kind of that setup. But anyway, it wouldn't have dawned on me as quickly if it hadn't been the teacher from Glee that was the lead singer.
Yeah. So, yes, it was a completely made up boy band called Fresh Step, which is also the name of cat litter in the United States. And this is like a bizarre level of comedy that really appeals to me, but is weird at the same time. So
I agree with that.
the writers of David Letterman's show created a fake boy band called Fresh Step. All the people in it were from the Broadway show Footloose at the time. That's where they all came from. Paul Schaefer wrote that song, and then they recorded it, and they got a couple of session singers to record the vocals. That's Talk to the Hand, Don't Talk to the Hand, Talk to the Heart. And they also have another song called Gotta Be Fresh as well.
Of course.
So it appeared on the show in the musical segment. Dave's got a CD in his hand, supposedly from a movie, and then they do their performing, and then it just closes the show, and they never ever say that it's not real. And then they came back a second time and performed another song. And again, everyone played it straight and they never spoke of it again.
Well, what I thought was funny is, as somebody who's really into Glee, there's this one funny bit in Glee where the teacher decides he wants to start his own boy band, and he gets all these older guys, and they kind of are like, I remember they do Poison, you know what I mean? That's one of the covers they do and things like that. And it's very much a setup of that. I didn't realize it until Tim just sent it to me, but now I realize that's probably like a double joke that Matthew Morrison is leading that band.
Yeah, that's because he was the lead singer in Fresh Step, a boy band that only existed for two episodes of David Letterman's show. And the best thing about this is that when this was going on, Carson Daly, who was on TRL, Total Request Live on MTV, he knew some of the writers and thought this was hilarious. And they appeared on TRL.
Of course.
Promoting their soundtrack album and talking about their song. And they sang an a cappella version of that song that I sent you.
So I have a question, though. Did it sound slightly out of tune to you? Like the whole song through?
It's because what you're listening to came off a VHS tape that someone put on YouTube. So it's not great.
Okay, then I'm not going crazy. I was like, this sounds really out of tune, which I thought was weird considering, like Tim was saying, they're all Broadway stars. Matthew Morrison went to NYU. He's been in like multiple Broadway shows. So I'm like, I know they can sing, but something about this sounds off. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. I found out about it because for one of the interviews with one of the writers, and he said that was one of his most favorite things he ever did. And then they played a high quality clip of it. But the only clip I could find of the whole performance was that one that I sent you.
That makes sense. Okay. I was just like, it's funny, but I'm like, it sounds out of tune. So I'm sorry, Matthew Morrison. I knew better.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But the funny thing is the whole thing was played completely straight, and it was in 99, so we had the internet, but internet wasn't at full adoption at that point. So it sort of happened, and then it went, and then nobody really commented on it. What they did do, I think it was on that performance, one of the dudes holds up a piece of paper with the Fresh Step website on it. And the David Letterman writers, they created a bogus website with bios and pictures and all this kind of stuff and a message board. And they said they got tens of thousands of hits on it. People saying they loved Fresh Step and some people say they didn't like Fresh. And it was just like they created this thing out of nothing. And then apparently some production company in South America wanted to book Fresh Step for a tour. And at that point, David Letterman's production company said, Dave loved this. This was funny. We're shutting this down. Done.
No more. Well, and the irony is if you guys go Google it and find a clip of them, they put each one of them in the most ironic, like they picked different outfits that were famous for different boy bands, and each member is in one of the most famous outfits from each. So like they picked like a famous kind of Backstreet Boy, the one with the wavy, and one of them is wearing that. And then they've got like a famous, maybe like 98 Degrees. You know what I mean, Tim?
Yeah.
And so each boy kind of has its own individual personality, like they did with like the Spice Girls and stuff. But then they're in like ironic boy band outfits. And they're all different though.
Yeah.
I caught on to that pretty quickly too. Because like I said, if it hadn't been Matthew Morrison, I would have been like, this is a weird blip and I see why they never made it. But when I saw his face turn around, I was like, I see now. But Tim, you taught me some fact about Glee I never knew. The reference to the band, the boy band.
There we go. But I will say that song, don't talk to the hand, but talk to the heart. Because I've heard that a few times with these clips I've been watching, and then I pulled the video to send to you. That song is absurdly catchy, and it should have been a hit.
I feel like it needs a little bit of lyric tweaking for it to be a hit, but it could have been. I will say,
And
it's kind of stuck in my head now.
yeah, and every verse is fresh, so fresh.
I know. It made me think of like when people signed yearbooks back in the day. I don't know if this is an American thing or not, but like, like the too cool for school where people like write like the number two or something.
Yeah.
That's what it made me think of.
Well, and they also made fake Broadway musicals. I won't go into that, but there's 3 or 4 completely made up Broadway musicals that were treated in exactly the same way. There's one that I like called that they did called Homecoming, about Jimmy coming home, and the dude said, he said at the end of the performance, he said you could hear people coming out the audience at the evening going, yeah, that's not a very good musical. How can that be Tony nominated? And again, apparently David Letterman thought this was hilarious to make a bogus musical that no one's ever heard of, treat it as real, do it once, and then never speak of it again. And he just thought that was just absurdly great. And then apparently that one in particular, Jay Leno's booker contacted whoever you speak to on Broadway to book musicals. Mm-hmm. And he was super irate, saying, "How did Letterman get Homecoming? Why weren't we offered Homecoming? I thought we had a relationship. We always get the big Broadway shows before Dave. Now we've been doing this for years." And then the Broadway booker said, "You do realize they made that up, right?" And they're like, "Oh,
no, I didn't. Well, I'm just gonna hang up the phone now." That's funny. All right. Well, it is Tim's episode. As always, I don't know what he's got, but I'll let him take it from here.
Okay. So here in Southwest Virginia for the last few days, it has been incredibly cold. We had a little bit of snow. It wasn't a lot. And then it's actually snowed a little bit today as well, like kind of blizzard conditions coming home.
More icy than snow.
Yeah, and the day before yesterday, or yes, it was either yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. It was 6 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those of you who use metric measurements, that's minus 14 Celsius.
Yeah.
It was incredibly cold. So I'd like to honor the turn of the weather here in Southwest Virginia. And I would like to do a collection of songs which have cold in the title.
Of course. I should have seen that coming.
Yeah, and I thought it's been a while since I've done one of my word matching episodes, so I thought, well, let's do one of these.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to open with this one from the band Kiss, and this is a song, Cold Gin.
Which is not really one of their more popular songs. I've definitely heard it before. But I wouldn't I don't think it would pop up on your Kiss's best hits album or anything.
No, it's not I Was Made for Loving You or God Gave Rock and Roll to You or any of the other big massive hits that you associate with Kiss. It's a very early album it's from. I think it may actually be the first Kiss album, if I remember correctly.
Now, the irony is you do know they made an actual gin right after the song. Like you could buy a gin and it's called Cold Gin. It's got like their faces all over it.
You can buy any Kiss product that you want.
Tim's like, of course they did.
For an organization where you can buy Kiss Cola and a Kiss casket, why wouldn't they be selling gin that's called Cold Gin?
Well, you know what's interesting? The more I think about it, does it actually say the word gin in the song? It says win quite a bit. But does it actually talk about gin?
I don't know. I've never really looked at the lyrics. Let's have a look. Cold Gin lyrics.
It might say it like once, but I know it says win a lot.
Oh, it's Cold Gin time again.
Oh, okay.
It's
and
time
then they
to
must
leave.
rhyme it with win.
Yeah. It's time to leave to get another quart around the corner at the liquor store. Aha, the cheapest stuff is all I need to get me back on my feet again.
Okay. So it's a song about an alcoholic?
Basically.
That's what I'm getting from this statement. But I do know that you can buy like a little quart. I've seen them at like the liquor store, and it was a long time ago. But yeah, it's like a bottle with their faces on it, and it was called Cold Gin.
Yeah, they were probably pioneers in the celebrity alcohol connection.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I'm sure it's vastly overpriced.
Well, of course. I mean, we can't have Gene and Paul going broke on us, can we?
Yeah, for real. Now, I will say, I really don't drink anymore, but gin was one that I never, in my heyday, cared for.
No, I don't like gin. I've had
It
gin before,
tastes.
and it's ugh.
Why does it taste like flat nothing?
Yeah, it has a weird taste. Like it tastes like gin, but it's not nice.
It's like there is like it has like no taste in every taste. I don't know how to explain it. Like there's nothing there but gin, and like, it doesn't taste like anything else.
Yeah.
No,
No,
yeah, I've never been a gin drinker, Tim.
no. Well, there
I'll
we are.
skip.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next song. This is from Ms. Catherine Hudson, otherwise known as Katy Perry. And this is her song Hot and Cold. She's doing both. She's celebrating the summer months and she's celebrating the winter in Virginia too.
Now this is what I call an earworm for me.
Hmm.
My brain randomly gets because you're hot and you're cold all the time. Now I think that this song probably came out was around 2008 because I feel like this song was popular when I was graduating high school.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I was trying to bring the credits up if it has the date on it. It doesn't have the date on it.
Well, anyway, I would say it's around then. At least that's remember when I remember hearing it, and that was the same time that I Kissed a Girl was out. So I'd
Mhm.
imagine they're the same album.
They are indeed, yeah, yeah. One of the boys is from.
Yeah. Both those songs were super, super popular, either right after I graduated or close to when I graduated. So I feel like it was like Katy Perry is one of those artists for me that kind of like have like that. They were the song of the summer a lot when I was younger. It was the
Mhm.
same with California Girls, of course. I remember that would have been like 2010. That was like the song of the summer. That's
Mhm.
kind of what I associate this song with. I Kissed a Girl and then Hot and Cold remind me of that summer. And we went like to senior beach week and it was like right before I went to college and all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My
So I
my
have
me
very distinct memories.
yeah, my memory of this is it coming out, and I sort of liked it.
That's when Tim was like, who's this Katy Perry person?
Yeah, I've always like. I think one of the boys is, as we've covered on my Katy Perry episode,
Yeah.
is my favorite Katy Perry album. I think when she became more electronic-y, dancey, I would say I lost interest, but it wasn't the same for me. But when she first came out, the music that she was making was very appealing.
And it was like, there's like, pop done right. It's like, it was
Hmm.
pop music, but it was done very well, stylistically, interestingly. It seemed like she cared about the music she was putting out,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. I remember my mom really liked Katy Perry. I remember she made comments. She ended up liking Bruno Mars for the same reason because they kind of had more higher quality pop music.
Hmm.
And she likes that kind of stuff. I also remember mom really liked there was one song that Pink did that's called it's the Get the Party Started. Have you ever heard that? Get the party started on
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
Friday night.
I
That
know the
one.
one.
Um, Mom always used to say that was just a disco hit that happened to come out in the 90s.
Yeah, I
Just
would
that
say
sounded like
that.
every disco hit in the 70s.
Back when I was doing cheesy discos with Moroccan Soul, that was on one of my standard playlists that I used to put on.
It gets the party started, Tim. You were nailing it.
There we are. I was a pioneer back then, probably.
Maybe, I don't know. I like Pink though, so that could be also I could have biases.
There we go. All right, let's move on to the next one. So this one, I'm assuming you're going to know this song because I know you're familiar with this
Okay.
act or band, should I say? This is the Grateful Dead and Cold Rain and Snow. Is that a Grateful Dead song you're familiar with?
I've heard it, but I wouldn't say I'm familiar with it. I have weird feelings, but we'll discuss this. The Grateful Dead is like this band to me, and there's a very I don't know how to explain it. Like I know there's a lot of people who love them. I know they were good musicians. I know they had a lot of bad luck with people in the band, some bad stuff
Hmm.
happened to different members. And but for some reason, like I never hear them. I don't really talk about them. I don't really see things about the Grateful Dead. Like I know there's like a lot of like cult classic lovers, but they're just like a band that doesn't ever pass through my brain. Like I don't think about them.
Well, they are a classic jam band, of course,
Of
and
course, yeah.
they sort of existed for well, they were around the same time as the Allman Brothers, but
Yeah.
when Jerry died, the Allman Brothers sort of carried the jam band flag because they were still out there touring and gigging. And then at some point, the Allman Brothers decided to call it a day. Both Warren Haynes and Derek Trucks both left. And,
Yeah.
and that then sort of fizzled out into nothing. And then there was the Dickie Betts band and all stuff like Dickie Betts had long been out of the
Hmm.
Allman Brothers at that point. And then, of course, then The Dead appeared, and then John
Yep.
Mayer was fronting The Dead, and there's various variations of it. But it's a whole culture of jam band music, and there's a lot of people incredibly passionate about that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. My friend Kirk Farmer is a huge fan of the Grateful Dead. My friend Alan Feldman, who fixes all my guitars, a guy out of Salem who's a fantastic guitar builder and repairer. He loves the Dead. He was actually, I think he was a roadie for the Dead at one point. And people love them. There's a bunch of other musicians
I
up
mean,
on.
they have a nickname. They're called Deadheads. Like they
Yeah.
literally have their own nickname. I know that, and they've got the little symbol. And I'll be passing by people's cars, and a lot of them will have this. But for some reason, they are just one of those bands, Tim. I don't know why. I never think about them.
No, but I would imagine if you ask the average person, even the average rock fan, if you like the Grateful Dead or what's your favorite Grateful Dead song, probably no one would know anything.
It's true. It's not an artist that I know. The only thing I know about the song you just named is I think it was a love song and something about being out in the cold, but I haven't heard it recently. And they don't have like that one song everybody knows. Not really.
No, maybe Love Light, maybe Shakedown Street's another great song by
Yeah,
them.
there's that trucking song. I remember that one.
Fire on the Mountain, maybe.
That would be actually, I think you're right. Fire on the Mountain's the first one that comes to mind when I think about them. But they're still not like they don't have like a Hotel California. You know what I mean? Like
No.
everybody knows that song by any stretch. It's just very interesting to me that there seems to be a huge love of this band. There's a lot of people around it, but I just haven't quite gotten it.
Maybe you have to do a lot of psychedelic drugs, and when you do, they just appear in your mind or
The
something.
bears start showing up in my face at all times, right, Tim?
I think that's
Just crossing
exactly what.
That's exactly what it is. Just little bears walking by. All
Yeah.
right. Well, what's
Okay.
our next song?
Okay. So, in a complete about turn from the Grateful Dead,
Do a 360.
yeah, this is Metallica, and this is actually a cover. This isn't an original.
Okay.
But this is a cover. And they covered this on their Garage Inc. album.
Okay.
And this is a song that they've played live many times. And this is Stone Cold Crazy, which is a Queen song.
Yes.
And in fact, they performed it at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert with James Hetfield singing it with the remaining members of Queen backing him up. But it's been a song that they've played live for many years. Now, the interesting thing about this song, I mean, the Queen song came out in the 70s. I think it was mid to late 70s. I can't remember the exact date, but it's a 70s track. And they basically invented thrash metal because when you hear Metallica do Stone Cold Crazy, it's like if you didn't know that was a Queen song, you'd think it's a Metallica song. It has that driving beat, it's changing time signature, it's everything. Yeah. And it's like Queen invented thrash metal in the 70s.
The only thing that I will say gives you a little bit of a hint that maybe it was invented by Queen is the lyrics. Because there are it's the only song I know that rhymes like typhoon with trombone or something like that. And so Queen has such very interesting lyrics that I don't know I would associate that with thrash metal. But I think you're right. The rhythm works perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie Darling only ever wrote glorious lyrics, let me tell you.
I think there's a line in there about dreaming about Al Capone.
Yeah, exactly. It probably says troubadour in there or something like that.
Something like that. So with that being said, if I don't hear the lyrics, I know what you're saying. But when I hear the lyrics, it does bring me back to maybe Metallica didn't write this song. Nothing against Metallica. That's another band with a very big cult classic following.
Yeah, but the thing is, Metallica's mainstream at this point, and if you live in this area, there is a college football team called Virginia Tech, and my wife can't stand the Virginia Tech. Not that she cares about college football; she's just fed up of seeing the logo and everything.
That's the way it feels around here for sure.
Yeah. But their like theme song is Enter Sandman, and one time Metallica came to Blacksburg to play Enter Sandman at one of their games, and
now they all jump up and down.
Yeah, and all this sort of stuff. So even outside of this area, Metallica has got so many hits at this point. Yeah. And, rock radio is playing their music and mandatory Metallica on some radio stations. They're in the collective psyche, to use fancy words.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I will say one of the things, though, I will give Metallica credit for, because it's not like I'm listening to Metallica regularly. I like them, but Tim, you know me. It's not really my thing. But I liked when they talked about not gatekeeping their music and
Hmm.
letting people discover them from like TV shows and stuff. Because we had that conversation before. I like that they were like, we don't care where people learn the music as long as they like it. Like, there's no gatekeeping with Metallica.
Unless you're Napster in about 2002 or something.
That's I'm sure that happened, but I don't know what it is. Did they sue them or something?
Wasn't you aware of the Metallica and Napster thing?
No.
So, like, Napster was a very early file sharing network,
I mean, I know
and
that.
it was completely illegal. But what Sean Fanning, who set Napster up, well, this was his
Hmm.
goal. He wanted to set something up that was amazing. He wanted to make it so people could exchange music files freely on the internet and free. And then
Yeah.
what you do is you build something amazing. You build up a huge user base. Understanding that it's never ever going to make a penny and it's probably not legal. And then
Yeah.
you sell it to someone like Warner Brothers. You make a load of money and then you move on to the next thing. But what
Yeah.
happened is that he was in talking to all these record companies who are full of old white men, basically, who have no idea how anything works. And they didn't want to give up the fact that they were selling these CDs for $17 a pop.
Of
And
course.
he's trying to say, well, this is what people want. This is the future. And all the music companies sued them.
I
And that was
remember then they went under, but I didn't know what it was
yeah, but I
for.
mean that was at the very beginning of file sharing, and then of course that happened, and iTunes Store happened, and then legitimate music selling services, and I think then Napster became a
I
brand.
was a Kazaa, LimeWire, maybe BearShare
Yeah, yeah, but like
girl.
Napster was at the very beginning of that thing,
Yeah.
and it all pretty much the way that the music industry has gone with streaming and everything, you can point it all back to Napster. That's exactly where it went. But the thing is,
Yeah.
Metallica, and in particular Lars, was very angry that fans were swapping files on Napster and he wasn't getting paid, and was
Mm.
very vocal about this.
Well, remember, they seem to get back together, even though they say they never will when the money comes. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then people were saying, it's at the very beginning of their career, their entire sort of fan base was built by tape trading before they had a record deal, and it was, but
That's the irony of it all.
yeah, and then said Lars was very vocal about
Hypocritical?
how he was not getting his money, and anyhow,
Mm.
he became the industry musician figurehead that everyone was hated at the time,
Okay. Well, no, I didn't know that. Good to know.
and
I
there
mean, I
was
remember Napster, but I didn't know all this happened.
yeah, and then there was it was like an MTV Video Awards or something like that, and I think Lars was there in the audience, and then
Mm.
some musician or other came on stage wearing a Napster T-shirt, and it became awkward. And it was a moment in time, Joy.
It was a moment in time. I'll have to go back and give it a Google later so I can catch up on it. I missed this blip in the history of music.
There we are.
Anyway, what's the next song?
Okay, so this one's maybe in your wheelhouse, as we say. This is from the album Forever Your Girl. This is Paula Abdul, and this is actually an album track, but it's Cold Hearted.
So I love this song. You were correct. It is in my wheelhouse. Pretty much anything by her would be, really.
Hmm?
Now, it is a song that I like. I guess it would be played at a CVS, so I'd probably listen to it pretty often. But that's the measure now, everybody. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back. And that is now the measure for every song. It's going to make it on the next bingo card. Would this play at a CVS?
Yeah, Saz, if you're listening, I think we need NMMC Bingo Card version 3. Would Joy be listening to this at a CVS? Check.
And you could put whatever the UK equivalent is. What did you call it, Tim?
Boots the chemist.
Yeah. So, yeah, probably Tim. That would be playing it. So that's my new measure. I mean, it's not like a song I think of regularly, but I've definitely heard it quite a few times.
Absolutely. But yeah, this is a great album. I said I had a copy of this originally in my old record collection, and I won it from a Capital Radio phone-in. And it evaporated when I let go of my classic collection. I repurchased it on CD. I also have a Canadian pressing of the album that I bought in a thrift shop in Canada last time I was there.
Now, this is one of those albums that it kind of surprises me. You've talked about quite a bit on the podcast. Like, I feel like you brought this album up specifically more than I would ever think Tim would.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was, as I said, my history with music was pretty much all pop. I used to listen to top 40 radio in the 80s and even into the early 90s. That's what I would predominantly listen to. Rock wasn't really a feature in our house. My parents liked the Beatles and things like that, but not a lot of music was played outside of what was on Capital Radio, which was the London pop station.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then even when I started getting into buying records and tapes and things like that, what was in the charts was really directing me in the stuff that I wanted to listen to and what I ultimately wanted to buy in places like Woolworths and Our Price and stuff like that. And it was only when I started playing guitar, when I was like 13, that I started getting into the world of rock. Because I'd buy guitar magazines, especially American guitar magazines, and they're talking about all these classic rock bands I'd really never, ever even heard of. And the mechanism to listen to that stuff didn't really exist. So you sort of had a vision in your mind how it would go. And then at school, when we had our band at school, like someone's dad would have a Led Zeppelin album or someone's brother would have a Guns N' Roses record or something. And that's sort of pretty much how you discovered it. And learning to play guitar and getting into playing rock songs was how I discovered the world of rock. And rock is, as we've seen from my Spotify Wrapped, is probably the genre of music I listen to the most. But I always have a soft spot for 70s, 80s, and 90s pop music because that is what I grew up listening to.
I will say this song specifically is a favorite of mine. Now, me and Charlie, I'll tell Charlie and me, we have I sing probably Cold, Jesus Cold, like 47 times a week. And Charlie and me will make a joke and Charlie will be like, yeah, you're cold-hearted snake. Like we like use that as a jab at each other. And so because Glee, here we go again. So for those who don't know, Paula was, a wonderful choreographer. Her singing is probably better than her music by far. Or not her singing, I'm sorry, her dancing is better than her music by far.
100%.
And so this Cold Hearted Snake is known to have like the really cool choreography in the video. If you've never seen it, she's wearing a short little black dress and there's very specific choreography that goes with it that everybody knows is like the Cold Hearted Snake. And apparently it's like a dance staple. Like if you're a fly girl or something, like it's. And so there's this joke on Glee. One of them, Santana, was talking to somebody and like she starts playing Cold Hearted Snake. And like literally every girl there, because it was at the dance school, like knew it because it's just known as that. And she was like, this one should be in your bones if you're any kind of dancer. So that's kind of what I associate with this. But I also just randomly, me and Charlie will do jabs at each other and I'll start singing Cold Hearted Snake.
One other Paula Abdul fun fact. Have you ever seen the film The Running Man?
I don't think so.
It is it's an 80s film, obviously, because they're the only ones I've ever seen. And it has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. And it's talking about a dystopian future that at this point actually happened 4 or 5 years ago.
I know what you're talking about now. Okay. Yes,
it's about a game show where the idea is criminals would be released from jail or whatever, and they'd go on this game show where that they could try and outrun the stalkers. And if they outrun the stalkers, they were considered free.
That's one of those movies I've seen in the background, but I've never sat down and watched.
Actually, really good. It's based on a Stephen King novel, but it's a film that I really enjoy. And like Hannah tolerates my love of 80s films like Flash Gordon, and then she'll tell me they're no good. But I think she watched that with me, and she said it's actually not bad.
Fair enough. Okay, that's a high standard.
As this show opens, because the show is called The Running Man. As it opens, they have like a dancing troupe. And they're all doing their dance moves, and then they part in the middle, and the host comes out and says, "Who do you love?" And blah, 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 The Running Man. And that dance troupe was all the choreography was done by Paula Abdul. That's what I was getting to.
Oh, I mean, it makes sense. Like she was a famous choreographer and she's still like on like TikTok and on social media and stuff. Like all the dances that are popular on TikTok, Tim, she posts her videos of her doing it. Like constantly, she like regularly. And there's like other dancers that became famous on like TikTok and Reels and all the videos. She'll like go like she'll do videos with other dancers, like goes out and meets them and does the choreography with them. So she's very active.
There we are. I take it TikTok is still a thing.
TikTok is still around. They didn't ban it yet.
I don't know. As I've said many times before, I feel I'm maybe a little too old for that. I feel that's not for me.
So that brings up an interesting thing that one time I wanted to have this conversation with you, and I forgot to bring it up in one of the episodes. I was reading this thing. So you know how short video like kind of those reels and the TikToks are really popular right now. Everything's just like in short little video spurts. Then you go to the next one, go to the next one, which creates a sequence of you scrolling and going through way too many things than you need to. But they talk about the absentee of like written, like new. So for me, certain things need to be in written format and certain things need to be in video format. And the one that I really like in written format is news. I hate whenever I'm like scrolling and there's like a news article and it's either in video format or if there's a video to watch. I don't know what it is, but for brain processing, I want to read news. Now, how are you on that, Tim? Is there something specifically that you feel you'd rather read than watch the video?
Um, Certainly reviewing things. There's something about the written about it because you can go back through the details and refer back to them. I pretend buy and unbuy guitar equipment almost on a daily basis. One thing that fascinates me a lot is new guitar equipment. And I like keeping up with what's being released, what comes out, what manufacturers are coming out, guitars, amplifiers,
That makes
effects, and stuff
sense.
like that. And
Yeah.
I just like that side of that, the hobby of playing guitar. Um, I sometimes watch reviews on YouTube, and there's like Andertons, who are a guitar shop in Guildford, that are actually in the UK, which is actually very big here, which is random. They've done very well with their videos, and they get lots and lots of views on them, and they
Okay.
review stuff on there. But I just find, I don't know, you're skimming through it and trying to find the bit you're interested in. I would prefer a written review because if I want to know some specifications, I want to see it written down.
Because it's easier. That's kind of like when you're like a news article or something. Like, let's say it's a case I'm interested in and I want to kind of go back and forth and pay attention to the details. It's because in those situations, the details matter. And if it's in a video format, it goes so quickly. I also struggled with when I was learning to play the ukulele, like playing along with videos. I did much better if it was in a written format for me starting out than
Hmm.
attempting to play along with the video because I would get distracted or look at what they're doing too much and not focus on myself. Like, where are my fingers at? Is that on G? And then I'd be looking up and then she's already moved on to the next note
Yeah, yeah.
because you have to I wasn't fast enough. That's another example of things, but I was just curious because there was I was reading a whole article about people complaining
Hmm.
about there's not enough written kind of things on the internet anymore. Everything has went to video, but there are certain things where you still want it in writing.
Yeah, I think the reason it's gone to video is that there's so much more bandwidth now. The
Yeah.
compression algorithm for compressing video is so much better, meaning that you can have a high quality video file and it's small in megabyte terms,
Hmm.
and the ability to display it on mobile devices and bandwidth in cellular connections. It's just everything has come together and it's like, oh, we can do video now anywhere. So let's put video on everything.
Makes sense. I mean, I get it. And I have doom scrolled. You know what I mean? Where you start watching, you just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. I've definitely done it myself. But I also have a theory that I swear to you, Tim, because I came to my, I guess you could say, adolescence and developmental stages right when the internet was coming out in like E-Bombs World and YouTube and all those type things were. And I love music. And most of those videos were about 3 minutes long. Most songs, what, 2 to 3 minutes long, right?
Hmm.
I have my attention span is about 2 to 3 minutes, and I account it to that. And it makes me worry that the attention span of the next generation is going to be like 2 seconds
I
because
would
they
imagine.
watch a video, scroll, watch a video, scroll.
I would imagine that's probably already the case because you think if you're a young person, you've grown up with that, and that's how you consume your content. The thought of watching something that's an hour long, you're like, oh, I don't want to move on the next thing, move on the next thing.
I already do it because I've already said I struggle to watch movies unless a movie is really good or a TV show just draws me in. And the ones that I tend to like are ones that are like I love a good mystery because there's a lot of turns and it changes a lot.
Hmm.
Like I like a good mystery, but outside of that, it's very, very, very like for example, I loved Pretty Little Liars, which is a mystery. I love Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder. All those shows are mystery shows. Lincoln Lawyer, right? But they have kind of like small little bits, and then they go to the next, and you're kind of putting the pieces together.
Hmm.
Even like The Masked Singer, in some way, is a mystery, right? But my attention span is 3 minutes. I have come to the conclusion is because I grew up when YouTube was popular, and me songs are about generally 3 minutes.
Well, when I grew up, the internet didn't exist, and
That's
none
because you're
of
a thousand.
yeah, and none of that was happening. And in addition, everything stupid I did as a teenager and in my 20s, there is zero record of it, and I'm very pleased with that.
I always worry about that. But moving along, my family listens to this podcast.
Moving
That's a
along,
fear of mine.
let's have another cold song. So this is John Lennon, and this is a song "Cold Turkey."
Well, I feel like we talked about that recently, or am I going crazy?
I think we may
Did we
have
talk about
spoken
the
about
song
it.
recently? I mean, John Lennon's solo career is just an interesting bag of things to me.
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it.
yes, I mean, he was, obviously married to Yoko Ono. She was like an experimental visual artist,
Yeah.
but he was collaborating with her making music, and in fact, their band was the Plastic Ono Band, and because she was creating very sort of avant-garde art, the music that they were creating together was very similar. And for every Imagine and Jealous Guy and Cold Turkey, there's 10 songs of Yoko screaming her head off with weird chords playing in the background.
Yeah. No, I will say I do feel as though a lot of people blame her for more than she deserves. I feel like she became a scapegoat in a way to like blame her for everything that went wrong with the Beatles and the breakup and things like that. I don't agree with that, but I don't care for her music. And I don't think, but that doesn't mean that she's a bad person. You know what I mean, Tim? Like,
No,
just because I don't get it doesn't mean she's a bad person.
I'm most definitely not blaming Yoko for anything.
Oh, I know. I'm just, you know how that's like the big kind of
and
overseeing
everyone will tell
thing.
you Yoko split up the Beatles and Yoko did this and Yoko did that. I'm of the opinion it's John. John was this super possessive man, and you only have to look back at Beatles lyrics before he even met Yoko when he was married to Cynthia Lennon. I mean,
Well, remember I did that whole episode talking about like the people and like and John Lennon was not a nice person.
no,
Like
not
there was literally like just like he'd be walking through an airport and he'd just punch a guy and keep walking.
yeah. And I mean, he connected with Yoko. Him and Yoko had a thing going, and they loved each other, and that's a thing. But as a person, he was not good. And
No.
like I said, she has become the scapegoat goat, but that is not fair.
It's not fair at all. And I hate to say there has to be a little bit of sexism going into it because she was a woman. I'm
Oh,
sorry, I'm a woman. I could say it. And so I just feel
100%.
like I feel like that's part of it. And it's just because she was a lightning rod in a situation where people were upset. And sometimes you need a lightning rod, good or bad, it does happen that way. But I will say but that whole episode, I can't remember what episode it was, but there was an episode where I did kind of like people you thought were one thing and they were, they ended up being another, or
Hmm.
like and one of the biggest ones me and Tim talked about was John Lennon, because, he talks about, people here imagine they just assumed a very peaceful person and peace, love, happiness, like that's like their thing, right? Peace and love, peace and love.
Hmm.
But apparently he was not a very peaceful person and he had a lot of rage issues.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
It's
And
crazy.
like I said, Yoko's art and the music that they made, maybe not to your taste, and it's probably not to your taste because
Yeah.
it is avant-garde and wacky. I mean, you've probably seen the video on YouTube, and this was maybe 10, 15 years ago. She did a thing at the Museum of Moving Art in New York City, and she entitled this particular piece "Voice Piece for Soprano," where she walks up to a microphone in an art gallery and then
Hmm.
screams her head off for like 2 minutes.
Yep. And
And it,
they've like put it in other things now. Like I've seen all the like making fun of it.
yeah, so actually somebody has made a metal version. And they played a metal soundtrack to it, and it's actually really cool. And if you listen to it, it sounds like screamcore metal. It's really well done. And if you speak to Yoko about this particular about this piece of art of screaming into a microphone, and she'll tell you, "Oh, I was representing the oppressed people. And I was representing women throughout the world and their oppression." And she has a reason why she did this piece of art. But I said, if you choose to enjoy that, that's fine. If you just think it's her screaming, that's fine too. But
I
she,
think I'm
she
jealous that I'm not getting paid the same money she is to walk up and scream into things.
no, though I did say to Hannah that if we was anywhere and Yoko Ono was doing voice piece for soprano, I want to go because it's Yoko Ono.
I probably would too, just to see what the buzz is about. Just for the
Exactly.
heck of it. But yes, so we didn't talk about the song at all. I mean, I've heard it. It says something about a turkey on a run.
Well, it's talking about coming off drugs, basically.
Yeah, something about cold turkey on the run or something. That's all I remember.
Yeah, there's another story about I heard where Keith Richards, famous drug addict, famous heroin
Yes, I
user,
have
and
heard that before.
yeah,
Correct.
and apparently John used to like to do heroin as well on occasion.
Wow,
So
that's shocking.
apparently they're both. Keith Richards and John Lennon are at the Dakota in New York City, and they're shooting
Always the
up.
Dakota.
Yeah, and they're shooting up heroin, and Keith Richards, a hardened drug addict, is like nothing. And like John Lennon, he shoots some heroin up, and then he spends the next 12 hours vomiting. And apparently Yoko's keeps sticking her head in the lavatory, going, "John, you can't handle that stuff. You can't handle that stuff."
I mean, generally, I feel like no one should handle that stuff.
No, I'm not condoning that at all. But
I know,
it's just
but it's
just
humorous.
funny that he wants to wants to do the same things as Keith Richards, and his body says no.
No, but not to say that he didn't do his own set of probably drugs.
No,
Enter the psychedelics mostly.
yeah.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was not about a picture, everyone. Has me and Tim have said 1,000 times on this podcast. Anyway.
But there we go. All right. Well, let's do a couple more.
All
So here's one that you'll probably know. This is from our friend Tone Loc, and this is the song
Okay.
"Funky Cold Medina."
Funky Cold Medina. Yeah, I've heard this song quite a bit. Very 90s staple. It's one of those, or I guess it would have been 80s, right? Did it come out in the 80s? Was it early 90s?
I think it's 80s.
I mean, it's one of those songs that I feel like has been in every movie ever. And isn't it a sample of another song?
Yeah, it's the Van Halen song "Jamie's Crying."
Okay, I'm not crazy then. I knew it was a sample of another song. I just couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, it's a song about where he's singing about an enhancement so he can have some more fun with the ladies.
Yeah, he's talking about a bar. Now, it hasn't aged well because people are not excited about kind of some of the lyrics in it, from
No,
what I understand. When you go back
absolutely
and
not.
listen now.
No, I'm not condoning the lyrics, but
Oh, I know. It's still got a cool beat, though.
yeah, it happened and what have you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had the album Loked After Dark when it came out.
That's kind of funny. I don't know any other thing by Tone Loc, though. Did he have any other, like, hits?
Well, he did Funky Cold Medina, Wild Thing. And
Oh,
then
that wild thing was him, yeah.
yeah, and then if you look on the Spotify, his most listened to tracks are that, and there's a track called "We're All in the Same Gang," and then his fourth and fifth most popular are a remix version of Funky Cold Medina
Of course.
and a remixed version of Wild Thing.
Well, he knows what sells for him, you know? Very on brand.
Yeah, 768,000 monthly listens.
Well, both those songs are like songs that I feel like you could go out into the general public and ask them, and even if they didn't know them by name, if you said Funky Cold Medina, they would know. Or Wild, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it would come in.
Absolutely.
So kind of random song though, I haven't thought of in a long time. But I imagine he made a lot of money off of royalties because I feel like that song's used in movies a lot.
Yeah, but I think the Van Halen sample or the Kiss sample or whatever it is, it would somewhat sap some of your royalties because whoever the sample
Oh,
is.
that's true. I didn't think about that. Okay, yeah, you're right.
And who's to say he even wrote it? I don't know.
I have no clue. I don't know anything about Mr. Tone.
Well, I'm curious to know what Tone Loc's real name is. What's Mr. Loc's real name?
You mean to tell me his name's not really Tone? That's just convenient for music?
Well, it's actually Anthony. So Tone, Tony, Anthony.
Yeah.
His name is Anthony Terrell Smith.
Anthony Terrell Smith. All right. I mean, Tone Loc.
Tone Loc.
I don't know why I can't say it, but the thing Tim said does have a cooler ring to it, so it makes sense.
Exactly. And is he still, I believe he is still with us. Yes, he is. And he is 57 years old, Mr. Smith.
Well, there you go. It just makes me think of that band, Tony, Tone with the exclamation points. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I can think of every time you kept saying it. Anyway, moving along. What's our next song?
Okay, well, let's close the episode out with this one.
All right.
This is the Jay Giles Band, and it's
Heard of
not
them?
their song Centerfold, obviously, because that doesn't have cold in the title. But this is doesn't necessarily have cold in the title, but it's alluding to things that are cold.
Okay.
And this is the song Freeze Frame.
I assume that's where you were going with it. I mean, free does insinuate you're cold.
Sure, and to be honest, I was running out of songs I could find with cold in the title.
That is it's kind of like when you do it. If you've ever listened to our episodes, they're generally within reason.
Yeah,
I mean,
can we use the gift of AI to go through these episodes and see how many percentage of them are us talking about music and how much percentage of us are talking about nonsense?
it would be pretty high, though. I would love for AI to judge that one with the us talking about the size of elevators or lifts, depending on where you were and if you fit coffins. It just got weird, and Tim's like, "Okay, let's move along." That was one of my favorites because it was just kind of like Tim paused for a minute. He's like, I don't know," and then I'm like, "I don't know either." I mean. Generally, though, we stay on topic. We talk about music, life. That's kind of maybe that should be our new tag. Talk about music, period, life, period.
There we are.
But anyway, back to the song. So this is the song that, like, talk about being used in a movie. This song's probably been used in almost every movie that came out in the 90s, even those early 80s.
Absolutely.
I can't think of another. No, this would have been with Peter Wolf, right? The original vocalist.
Yes, absolutely. This is classic Jay Giles Band from the same era as Centerfold, really.
Yeah, I mean, another song. I mean, Centerfold and Freeze Frame alone could leave them billionaires because I could think of at least 5 movies. Both of those have been used on the soundtrack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Centerfold is probably the most famous one of the two.
Oh yeah, I would think so. But I mean, who doesn't know Freeze Frame? Like that little,
Freeze frame.
I mean, even if you don't know the song, you know that part where it's like freeze frame. And there's a lot of really good rhyming in this one. Like there's tons of rhyming throughout, like the first verse and the second verse.
Absolutely.
They didn't write tonight with tonight or anything like that.
Yeah, that's like something Sammy Hagar would do.
Never heard of that before in my lifetime. What are you talking about? But yeah, I love that. You're like, I kind of ran out of songs. I mean, you could have dabbled into "Baby It's Cold Outside." I guess if you got real desperate.
No, I think I actually had that on there. I was just sort of picking and choosing the list.
That makes sense. All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that, and me and Tim will try to stay warm. I wonder if it's still snowing. I'll find out in a minute. Do you have anything for the people?
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a weather report. Hang on a second. The headphones are off.
Okay.
I'm looking out the window.
Weather report. Weather report. Tim's giving a weather report. Weather report.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce it is no longer snowing.
Boo. Tim, when you go back and listen to this, you'll get to hear my weather report song when you walked away. I sang everybody a beautiful song. All right. Now, what do you want to leave the people with?
Just be extra kind to everybody you meet.
I agree. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
To find me out for another day to love.